Hi everyone, my name's Ashley DeLuca, and for my jigsaw project, I decided to focus on checklists. So, what are checklists? Checklists are used for data technique as a list of behaviors, characteristics, skills, or other entities that a researcher is interested in investigating. I thought Mertler described what a checklist was very well, which is why I included that quote. So, in order for a teacher researcher to use a checklist, first, the teacher would need to know what they're looking for and create a manageable number of checklist items. Since this is done from an observer perspective, checklists are based off of observations of if you saw something happen in your classroom or if you did not. Um, and that was really the focus or what I gathered from the readings on when a checklist is used more for observations. That's in comparison to rating scales. So rating scales and checklists are very similar but different. The difference between a rating scale and a checklist is that a checklist is only a dichotomous set of response options, meaning that there's only one of two answers. It either did happen or didn't happen. You either saw it or you didn't see it. Whereas a rating scale, like a Likert scale or a semantic differential scale that was mentioned in the book, and the other readings measure what an individual believes, perceives, or feels on some sort of continuum, meaning that when a teacher or an observer or a student or a parent or whomever that's completing these rating scales, it's done on a numerical rating scale from, for example, 1 to 5. How did you feel about completing that project? 1 being the least, 5 being the most, type of thing. So I have an example from Mertler, the Mertler chapter of what a checklist would look like, and the one given was an independent reading checklist where you can see some of the reading traits that are being looked at: respecting others, staying on task, choosing appropriate books, so on and so forth. Did you see it? Did you not see it? And you can see that all you put is a check, not a numerical value. Checklists are, though, a part of the quantitative technique. They are, when used to collect data, it's done over a period of time, so you can look back and see how many times this student, for example, going back to the example, did they respect others? How many times did they respect others? How many times did they stay on task? How many times did they choose appropriate books? So on and so forth. So it answers the questions based off behaviors and characteristics, like I had mentioned, the if or if not type of questions. Did you observe this? Yes or no? Those are the types of questions that are answered from a checklist. Some of the strengths and weaknesses, I'm going to start with the strengths. So a checklist is very time efficient. Once it's made up, a teacher researcher can easily go through and just check off the yes or no's. It is from an observatory standpoint that can be tracked day to day or project to project, class to class, and it tracks patterns over time. And it can also be done digitally or in a traditional checklist. Some of the weaknesses is that the data collected is not as detailed as the data that would have been collected from, for example, a Likert scale or a different rating scale. And its limitations are the dichotomous responses, which I coupled as a weakness because it can be either yes or no type of responses rather than like a rating scale where you get a range of responses. I thought the quote from Mertler that I have here applied to this. Generally speaking, quantitative data collection techniques are more efficient in that you can collect data from numerous individuals simultaneously. So that would be more of a strength for a checklist, that you can look at multiple students in an efficient, timely manner. Whereas, however, the depth of those data does not begin to compare that resulting from the use of qualitative techniques, meaning that there are limitations. You're looking at it from a numerical standpoint rather than um, a more detailed, in depth uh, response, such as like field notes, for example, where you get more information. This is Checklists are, in my opinion, the very basic of collecting data. So that brings me to the validity and reliability. Reliability refers to the consistency of the data, and the uh, validity refers to the accuracy and meaningfulness of what is collected, um, meaning that you are testing what you are supposed to be testing, or collecting data on what you're supposed to be collecting data. Um, for me, I think that one of my concerns would be that checklists might not be valid. So it's important for teacher researchers to critically examine the individual items and overall content coverage on a survey, rating scale, checklist, test, or quiz in order to ensure that what they are measuring is what they intended to measure. So I think that would be the critical part, and could bring some concern when using a checklist, and that a checklist can't be the sole data collection. You would need to increase the validity of the checklist by including other forms of data, such as the uh, triangulation that was mentioned in the book and in all of our readings. That is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.